And now, straight out of Boston, Massachusetts, it's time for Entertainment Talk Nation, your #1 entertainment talk show, discussing everything from the movies to video games and more. And now, here is your host, Robert Rosado.
Hello and welcome back to the E.T.N PodCast. So happy to have you back. It is Monday morning, Monday afternoon. It's about 11:45 in the afternoon. And this podcast episode, we're going to do a wrestling roundup of everything that happened dating back to last weekend, starting with the NXT Takeover, all the way till this point. Because going forward after this, every wrestling podcast will be focused on an episode basis. So tomorrow morning, we're going to do a Raw review, but we want to get caught up. We want to get caught up with everything. So that way, when we start the next review, we are on point. We are on track. Plus, the last week of wrestling was just really, really good. Survivor Series was really, really good. NXT Takeover War Games was just excellent. Monday Night Raw, for the first time in a long time following Survivor Series, was very good. NXT had a solid episode. AEW probably had their first episode that I really didn't like. And then Smackdown was just okay. It was kind of like WWE going back to normal. Although there were some things about that show I liked as well. Now, I've been watching wrestling just to kind of give you guys a quick rundown as far as myself as a wrestling fan. I've been a wrestling fan since I was a kid. All right, I'm 42. I just turned 42 on Saturday. My birthday was November 30th. I want to, and real quickly, thank all of those who were on the stream on Saturday night. We had a nice long 5-hour stream. We had a lot of people there, and it was a lot of fun. My wife, we had fun. My wife put makeup on my face, much to the delight of the viewers, and we did a little bit of a watch party. I did some giveaways. It was a lot of fun. So if you're a new listener, or if you're just someone who's coming over from the YouTube channel, also listening to the podcast, but you've never been to a live stream, I live stream Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm usually on Twitch, DLive, and YouTube. I simulcast on those 3 platforms. So definitely come in and join one day. We generally talk about a lot of things, but most of my live streams are very, very focused on interacting with the viewers more than anything. And, they might ask questions, and it's a very interactive experience. So also don't forget, you can follow me at etn.podbean.com, but keep your eye out for other platforms. I am already up on Spotify. So if Spotify is your preferred platform to listen to podcasts, just go to the podcast section, enter in Entertainment Talk Nation, and you will find me. You'll have to scroll down a little bit. We're new there, so we haven't gotten into their system yet. We're not going to pop up top. We're relatively new, but I'm there. I already checked. And iTunes, we're still waiting for iTunes to come back with their confirmation. So you won't find me on iTunes, even though my episodes are already on there. But I don't come up on the search yet because I'm not fully accepted on the iTunes platform. But believe me, when I am, I will let you know. You'll be the first to know. Now, going back to what I was saying, I've been a wrestling fan since I was a kid. And, when I stopped watching wrestling after the Benoit death, because Chris Benoit was my favorite wrestler, even growing up. During the 80s, going into the 90s, it was very hard to watch, international wrestling, like the indies. It was very tough to catch that back in those days. It wasn't as accessible as it is now. But I was able to watch a lot of Japanese wrestling back then, because my older cousin was a big fan, and he used to bring in tapes and stuff like that. We used to be, there were a lot of stores in Manhattan back in those days where you could go and you could buy, wrestling from Japan. There was Japanese anime, you could buy that. And they used to import it. And that's where I discovered Chris Benoit. I discovered him as the Pegasus Kid. And I became a huge fan of his. In fact, I became a huge fan of him and Jushin Thunder Liger when I saw their match in New Japan Wrestling back in the day. And then I followed Chris all the way up until his time in the WWF, which now WWE, of course. And then after the whole thing that happened with him and his family, the suicide murder, I stopped watching wrestling. It was heartbreaking. I'm telling you, when I say I was a huge Chris Benoit fan, I'm talking, even though when he won the title, it was like, even though I knew, I mean, I'm old enough by then to know, hey, this is kayfabe, whatever, I was still almost in tears watching him clutch that title because it was the first time he finally got the recognition he deserved as a major contender in the championship. So then when that happened, I stopped watching, and I returned to watching wrestling in 2015, and it's changed a lot. It took me a lot of time to get acclimated to the way things have changed. But now here we are, and it's amazing the contrast of wrestling now versus wrestling back in the day. Back in the day, it was all the big beefy guys, and they mainly threw punch and kicks, and people ate it up. Now you got men of all sizes doing incredible things, but the fans aren't eating it up as much. But that's not necessarily the talent's fault. You know, booking has changed. Things are not as secretive in the industry as they used to be. Maybe that takes away a little bit from it. I don't know. But I tell you one thing, the wrestling talent in the ring is incredible now. It's definitely at a peak that I've never seen before. And that's one of the things I love about watching wrestling right now. I've always appreciated the men in the ring because they're putting their body on the line to entertain those in the audience and those watching on TV. And let me tell you something. When you're seeing a guy take a suplex from the top rope, when you see guys taking chops to the chest, and when you're seeing all these acrobatic moves or whatever it is they're doing, it's hard not to appreciate that. It's hard to criticize that. And that's one thing, you'll barely ever hear me criticize a wrestler in and of themselves, because that's something I'd never be able to do, even at my younger age. I think criticism definitely goes to the bookers and promoters, things of that nature. And I think that you can definitely criticize the wrestlers on how they carry themselves. Now, in a place like WWE, obviously you got to play by the rules. And most times they're going to give you a gimmick. But most wrestlers outside of WWE are in control of their own gimmick. They're in control of their own promo. And that is really what determines whether or not they're a star. Because there are, all these guys are talented in what they do, but not all of them can be stars, you know? But anyway, that's just a short intro into how I think of wrestling, where my wrestling roots lie, and things like that. So let's get into, first of all, let's start off with the NXT War Games. Now, I'm not going to go through each and every match on each and every show, because then we'll be here for 3 hours. So I kind of want to just run through these shows, kind of share my thoughts, maybe mention a match or two that I like the most, then move on to the next one. So the War Games is a lot of fun. NXT War Games is a lot of fun. And this pay-per-view that happened 2 Saturdays ago was just extraordinary to watch. And I have to say, probably my favorite match is the men's match. Simply because of KO coming out of nowhere. Now, the women's match was great. A lot of good storytelling there, especially with Dakota Kai turning heel and Candice LeRae and Rhea Ripley being at, fighting against all odds. But I love Rhea Ripley. Right now, she is quickly becoming one of my favorite female wrestlers. Before her, it was kind of like Charlotte Flair, because I love Charlotte Flair's athleticism. I love her when she's a heel. And despite the fact that I don't agree with the way the WWE continue to hang their hat on her, I got to give credit where credit's due. And Charlotte Flair is just fantastic. But Rhea Ripley is quickly becoming my favorite female wrestler. She is very energetic. She's very animated. She's got a fantastic build. She's very athletic. And she is damn strong. I mean, she just carries herself so well. She carries herself as a dominant wrestler, and she performs as a dominant wrestler. And look, if I were in charge, I'm not going to lie, I would strap a rocket on Rhea Ripley's back and push her to the moon. But, that's just my opinion. So I would say, yeah, definitely the men's match was my favorite. But I would say that the women's match had a better story to tell, in my opinion. That Dakota Kai turn was something else. And fighting against all odds for those two ladies was great. And then finally having Rhea Ripley pin Shayna Baszler was definitely a good choice. Was definitely, because I love Shayna Baszler, you know, but she's had that belt too long. Now, I'm getting, you know, Shayna Baszler's 39 years old. I don't know if a lot of people know that. So I don't know how much time she has left in the ring. So I'm not sure, because to me, she should have been brought up by now. And she hasn't. And she's been holding this belt for the longest time, which is telling me that maybe NXT is just her destination. You know, it just might be somewhere where she stays and that's her career and that's it. You know, I'm not saying she won't be called up. I'm not saying she shouldn't be. She should definitely be called up. But she's 39 years old. And I think if they call her up, she's one you got to kind of push right away. You know what I mean? And I just don't have the confidence in the WWE to do that. So where she ends up is unknown right now. I would think that she's probably going to be called up soon, because it looks like that they're maybe setting up that whole horsewoman feud. Some people were expecting to see Ronda Rousey at the Survivor Series pop up, but she didn't. But I think she'll be back soon. Probably Royal Rumble. Royal Rumble's usually where you kind of want to drop all those kinds of bombs. So I have a feeling Ronda will be back for Royal Rumble. That's just my opinion. I would also say one of the things I loved about that past week in wrestling was it was Keith Lee's moment. Keith Lee had a great week. And he was fantastic in the War Games match. I mean, the fans were going nuts for him when he came out of that cage. And it was a big week for Keith Lee, which is good to see, because he's been with NXT and WWE for a while now. And it's only like the last several months that he's finally been getting the airtime that I think he deserves. And I think it's only a matter of time before he ends up on the main roster. You know, definitely. Now, the one match of the night, believe it or not, that I didn't really like too much, I know this might be a surprise to some people, was the Matt Riddle-Finn Balor match. And it's not because of the in-ring performance. That's a given with these two men. The issue I had with this match was, on one hand, you have Finn Balor, who on the main roster was basically a punching bag. He was basically being used to put other people over. They didn't know what they wanted to do with him. You know, 1 minute he's having a surprise match with Brock Lesnar earlier this year, or the beginning of the year, I should say, Royal Rumble. And you think that maybe they might give him this push, and then he just goes back to his losing ways. And we get to a point now where he's back down on NXT, which I thought was a smart move. And he starts this, well, I guess it was supposed to be a feud started with Johnny Gargano, who got injured. So Matt Riddle is his replacement at this match. And I think this is bad, because Matt Riddle's been kind of starting to be highlighted as one of the main contenders. He's been on, you know, he's been winning a little bit here and there. And he's finally gotten over. He wasn't over when he first got to NXT, but he's finally over now. He looks like he could be a future contender. And he's had a very strong and steady push to this point, where losing to Finn Balor, who's coming in, and you don't want Finn to lose this one either, because he's already been losing on the main roster. So now he's going to come down and he's going to start losing on NXT. Can't do that either. So I kind of felt like this match maybe shouldn't have happened, or maybe it should have been somebody else instead of Matt Riddle. Problem is, according to the story, who else could you possibly use? You know what I mean? So for that purpose, I didn't like this match, because now if Finn loses, you just put the same stigmata on him that he's losing. And then if Riddle loses, you kind of slow down his push a little bit. So be that as it may, the match in and of itself was fine, but it was just my least favorite for the purposes of booking. And that's why I didn't like it too much. So let's move on to the following night in Survivor Series, which I got to say, Survivor Series was a pleasant surprise. And it wasn't a pay-per-view I expected to be as good as it was. And it turned out to be better than I expected. I think everybody, including myself, expected NXT to finally take their losses here on this pay-per-view. And it wasn't the case. Not only did they not lose, they pretty much dominated the whole night. I think the men's Survivor Series match was probably one of the best. The women's was good too, but the storytelling wasn't that great. Because the night before, you made Rhea Ripley look like a beast. And then in this one, you pretty much had her beat Sasha Banks at the end, who's not really that imposing to begin with compared to Shayna Baszler. And she gets help from two of her teammates that got knocked out of the match earlier, not by pinfall, by injury. And suddenly they're running down the ramp like, oh, yeah, no problem, miracle pill. And that just, you know what I mean? The match in and of itself, once again, the wrestling wasn't the issue. The storytelling here. So it was almost a complete opposite of what happened at TakeOver. At TakeOver, the women's match was fantastic storytelling. And the wrestling was good too, obviously. Then this match, the wrestling was great, but the storytelling was just hellish. Universal Championship match. And I'm kind of bouncing around here because, like I said, I'm not going to, go match by match. But the Universal Championship match with Bray Wyatt and as the Fiend, and then Daniel Bryan was okay. I'm starting to get an idea that a lot of the Fiend's matches are going to be him taking major bumps and looking impervious to pain. But I'm liking the story where this is going between Bray and Daniel. I will say that. It's definitely a lot better than the Bray and Seth Rollins story. Because now you have Daniel Bryan on this comeback train to the Yes Movement. And, of course, Bray Wyatt, being the genius that he is, just continues to do what he does. Bray Wyatt's The Fiend is still very much over despite the horrible decisions by WWE. They borderline almost killed that character in one night. They're very lucky that there's a lot of fans out there that love Bray Wyatt. They love he's very, very creative. He's also obviously a very good wrestler. So despite the blemishes by WWE and the mistakes they've made, Bray Wyatt, him in and of himself, has kept that character one of the hottest things in WWE right now, in my opinion. I also loved the mid-card championship triple threat. I thought with Roderick Strong, Shinsuke Nakamura, and AJ Styles, I thought it was a lot of fun. And I thought the way they pulled off the ending was perfect. It was perfect. Because Roderick Strong looks indeed strong, and AJ and Nakamura do not come off looking weak. It was a very slick and clever move by Roderick Strong to basically chuck AJ Styles out the ring and steal his win, which was all, pretty much set in stone after his move. And then Roger comes in, tosses him out, and takes the pin. I thought it was great. I thought it was perfect. It was perfect. So I thought overall, the Survivor Series was really good. Unfortunately, it was a very weak ending with the Ladies Championship. I don't know what went wrong there. Because I like Bayley's another female wrestler that I really love, and I love her especially now with her heel turn. I think it's been effective. I love that I don't care attitude she walks out with. Becky is Becky, and while she's cooled off since last year, she's still a very, very hot thing for the women's division. And then Shayna Baszler is basically been dominating NXT for almost 2 years now? So this match had all the writing on the wall for it to be great, and for some reason it just didn't click. I don't know if it was chemistry or lack thereof. I don't know what it was. But Shayna did not look like Shayna in this match. And, you have her win the match only to have Becky standing tall at the end. There's just a lot of questionable things about that match. It should have been better. It should have been better. And wasn't for the lack of effort from the ladies in the terms of wrestling, but the story wasn't there. There just was a lot of lacking in this match. Now granted, a lot of the NXT wrestlers they've been working double time almost. They started this invasion angle nearly a month before this pay-per-view, and it was only like the last week or two that SmackDown and Raw had been starting to flip back and forth, but NXT's been doing it a lot longer in terms of invading SmackDown, invading Raw. They have started doing that right after, Crown Jewel? Was that the one that took place in Saudi Arabia? I know they do more than one. Sometimes I confuse the names So, yeah, you could argue maybe there was some fatigue there. Understandable. But overall, it was a big disappointment of a match. But hopefully it's made up for in the future when these women start going towards that storyline that, again, no guarantee, but it looks like they're kind of going in that direction. So then we follow up Survivor Series with Monday Night Raw, which I gotta say was one of the best Raws they've had in quite some time. I have a hard time watching Raw on a regular basis because it's 3 hours long. It is hard for me to sit through a whole show of Raw, especially when Raw consists so much of these promos that I just get tired of. When you have, WWE, look, every wrestling program needs promos. I know that. I get that. I've been watching wrestling since I was a kid. You can't get one wrestling show, even a house match if you go to, that's not going to have some sort of promo. But if you have the roster the size of WWE, and they have a very sizable roster, there's no excuse to have most of your programming sucked up by promos. And that's usually what kind of keeps me out or gets me looking at something else. If somebody comes out for a promo, especially with someone I don't care about, like, King Corbin, and it's not that I don't care, I actually like Corbin a lot, but he, after a while, it's like, okay, how much more of this guy are we going to get? Yeah, he's a great heel. I do like him. I think he's a great wrestler, but he's like on every promo. That's obviously talking about Smackdown now, but that used to be the case on Raw with him. But this show was really, really good. And I like the opening with Seth Rollins coming out and basically throwing everybody under the bus. And slowly everybody's walking away from him, And there were a lot of wrestling matches on this episode. Now, granted, not all of them were great. Bobby Lashley and Titus O'Neil. That was an odd match. Haven't seen Titus O'Neil in the ring in God knows how long. And you could tell he was definitely rusty in that match. But WWE overall has been doing pretty good lately with some things. In particular, that whole Lashley-Rusev storyline, which started off as embarrassing. It was just embarrassing to watch. I can only imagine how Rusev and Lana feel. These two are married in real life, and there she is smooching up with Bobby. Maybe even Bobby Lashley feels uncomfortable about this. I mean, God bless them. They're all performers. They're being professional, and I can appreciate that. This feud has actually turned out to be pretty decent in the end, and I think that's because now it's more focused on Lashley and Rusev as opposed to Lana and all her drama. That's not to say it's perfect in any way, shape, or form, because, it is a really cringy storyline. But I did like Raw. And, it was nice to see the Authors of Pain come back. That's the tag team from NXT that I really love. They've been away far too long. I'm still a little bit getting impatient with what they're doing with Aleister Black. Aleister Black is another one of my favorite former NXT wrestlers, and I can't tell if they don't know what to do with him, or they're trying to do a long, drawn-out build-up with him. Because in my eyes, let me tell you something. If it was up to me, Aleister Black, I would be setting him up as my modern-day Undertaker. And when I say that, I don't mean that he has to come out with the whole Undertaker gimmick. I mean, he's himself. He's Aleister Black. But he would be that dark wrestler, I guess other than The Fiend, because now we have The Fiend. But he would be that other dark character that you kind of build up. He's obviously not as big as The Undertaker, but, he's not a small guy. Super athletic. His striking is just incredible. I love his music. I love his entrance. Take away that creak. But okay, I can understand why they did it. And I want to see more of him. I want to see Aleister Black contending for a title. I want to see Aleister Black on pay-per-views. So I'm hoping that what they're doing with him is a slow burn to building him up. Now, with that said, it's not like his matches have been exactly that challenging. Some could argue, all right, he did have a match with Andrade and Starrcade, but I didn't even watch Starrcade. Honestly, I'm not interested. It's a glorified house show. And I'm kind of glad I didn't watch it based on what I heard about it last night. So, I'm hoping they go somewhere with that. So I want to see Aleister Black a lot more. And maybe that's why they're doing it. Maybe they are planning on pushing him to the moon and they want to make you want to see him more. But probably the best part of the show was seeing the United States Championship switch over to Rey Mysterio. After a disappointing match with Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series, and I say disappointing because honestly, I wanted to see him win. Brock Lesnar is like, look, God bless the dude. He's taking advantage of his name and he wants the deals he wants, and WWE keeps giving it to him. Comes on every now and then. He's always having a title. It's like, it would have been such a great story to tell to have Rey Mysterio take the title off him. And you want to know something? Brock Lesnar probably would have been more than happy to do it. If you pay attention to news outlets and things like that regarding wrestling, Brock Lesnar loves and respects a very small handful of wrestlers in the industry. Rey Mysterio is one of them. And you could tell, if you want to know if Brock is invested in the person he's working with and invested in the story they're developing together, just pay attention to how much he sells. If he's selling like a champ for the person he's up against, he cares. And all you have to do is go through their storyline from the moment it started all the way to this point. And Brock Lesnar has been selling like a champion for Rey Mysterio since the beginning of this feud, which is also one of the reasons why many people thought that Mysterio had a chance to win. Now, obviously, it's Brock Lesnar. So 9 times out of 10, you're going to bet in favor of Brock Lesnar because he always wins. But there was that small glimmer inside of me that said to myself, hey, you know what? I think Rey's got a chance to get this one. And it would have been great if he did. Well, you know what? I got to give WWE credit for coming back the following night and giving him a title and taking it away from AJ Styles, which is, the United States Championship right now has been elevated to probably its highest degree in a long time, if not ever. Because you put a belt on AJ Styles, and AJ Styles will elevate that belt to a new threshold. He made the WWE Championship relevant again with the year that he had it. And he made the U.S. Championship very coveted. And now he loses it to a very, competent champion, a veteran, someone everybody knows that Rey is capable of beating anyone, especially AJ Styles. It was just a great match. It was a great story. And now you have this time, because let's face it right now, the United States Championship is on a higher level than the Intercontinental Championship right now. Intercontinental Championship has been sitting around Nakamura's waist, which is fine, but they haven't done anything with it. They haven't done anything with him. So right now, the United States Championship is your premier mid-card championship belt. Well over the Intercontinental. And I never thought I'd be saying that because the Intercontinental title is a title that's been a very important figure in the WWE since back in the 80s and the late 70s. And now you have a title, a former WCW title, that has pretty much become the premier mid-title championship belt on the program. And it's being held by Rey Mysterio, who's pretty hot right now. He's been hot since he got back. And it just came off another wrestler who has been one of your best wrestlers pretty much since you acquired him when he made his debut at the Royal Rumble. So I thought it was great. And it was great to watch that. Now, once again, this is a long show, and I don't want to stay too much on Raw, but what I will say is overall, this was one of the better Raws in a while, and I just hope they keep it going. I hope they keep it going. All right, so moving over to Wednesday Night War, NXT and AEW. Not going to get into too much detail here. I will say this. NXT won this night easily. AEW, and I'll focus more on AEW here because we've been talking about WWE since we started with the War Games. AEW, I would say, in my opinion, probably had one of their first bad episodes. And the problem here, and I have this all in front of me, so I kind of want to go through the matches quickly. But I'm going to start with the Jericho Scorpio Sky match. Nobody was interested. Nobody was interested. You just watch that match again. The crowd was completely quiet. And it's not because Scorpio Sky he's over with SoCal Uncensored. As a solo act, not so much. And the guy's athletic. He's super funny. He's great. But even me, I'm like, there's just something about watching this right now. It's just not working for me. You know, and AEW right now, one of the early signs I see about them that they're kind of having an issue with is I kind of feel like at times they're trying to put over everybody. They're trying to put everybody over. Like earlier in this show, you had the Best Friends beating the Lucha Brothers. I mean, it's not going to hurt the Lucha Brothers because everybody knows what the Lucha Brothers are capable of. Pentagon Jr. and Rey Fenix are just incredible. They have a very good track record. So them losing to the Best Friends, no one's going to buy into that. It's not going to bother them. It's not going to bother the fans. What I see the fans having a problem with is buying into the fact that the Best Friends are beating them. And I'm one of those people. Like, I saw this match and I'm like, what? Really? And that's what tells me, you're right, you're kind of trying too hard on the pushing here. Look, it's okay to have your established stars, and then you have some stars that they're just there to, I don't want to say be fodder, but it's not their time yet. It's not their time. You go watch wrestling throughout the years, everybody gets a moment. So at some point, the crowd will appreciate a wrestler that's been around for a while, who's taken his bumps, who's had close shots, and they suddenly start getting behind them. Daniel Bryan is a perfect example of this. It just happens. And you got to let it happen organically. You can't come in here and have the Lucha Brothers lose to the Best Friends. I mean, these are guys who are going to be your tag team champions one day. Them or the Young Bucks. There's just been certain things that they've done that and look, right now they're a hot thing. They have a rabid fan base that kind of doesn't, right now the fans are not going to react to AEW like they react to WWE because they're the new kids on the block. They've got, the indie reputation and, Kenny Omega, all those guys. And, they're going to have their mistakes. They're going to make their mistakes. They're going to have their hiccups. But I'm sorry, I'm not buying that the Best Friends can beat the Lucha Brothers. And furthermore, the only thing I like about the Best Friends is Orange Cassidy, and he doesn't even wrestle. It's the only thing I like about the Best Friends is Orange Cassidy. Other than that, I don't even care about the other two. And giving them a win over the Lucha Brothers is not going to make me care anymore because I just don't buy it. So that's me. Then you had the Cody match, which, don't even ask me who he fought because I don't remember the guy's name. In fact, I was wondering what the hell he was even doing in the ring with this guy. If that wasn't one issue, then after he beats the guy in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, then some dude comes out, Excalibur's on the mic like, it's the Blade. And I'm thinking to myself, who is the Blade? I mean, I can't say that I watch indie wrestling all the time, but I know enough about it to know pretty much all the wrestlers in AEW and all the ones around the world. Or not all of them, but a good portion of them. And I'm like, who is this guy? And then some other dude comes out with a monocle, and he's called the Butcher. Something doesn't fit there. You're called the Butcher and you're wearing a monocle. And then this other lady comes out called the Bunny, who I forget her real name, but just a week or so before, I think she was being, they were showing her being ranked at AEW, and she wasn't the Bunny at the time they showed her ranking. So it's just a really, really not such a great episode for AEW. It just wasn't really good. The Cody thing made zero sense to me, that match. These three making their debut, Blade, Butcher, and Bunny, just, the crowd was dead. Nobody cared. Nobody knew who they were. You don't make epic entrances like that unless it's a big signing that somebody knows about. Like, for example, like if that had been Undisputed Era coming from the bottom of the canvas to jump Cody, that would have been something that you do that for. You know what I mean? Because everybody knows the Undisputed Era. You don't do that for some 3 random dudes that nobody's ever seen before. You know, you introduce them in a match against, you know, some local talent that they can squash in a match to kind of start building them up. But you don't have them come out of nowhere and jump Cody for reasons. Cody's supposed to be having a feud with MJF, and these guys come out of nowhere and just jump him for what? So yeah, it was not a good AEW episode. I didn't like it at all. You know, I'm even amazed that there's still some people out there giving it an A, and I'm like, really? I mean, because I'm not a bias per AEW. I'm gonna call it like I see it with AEW and WWE. I will criticize them to hell and back if I have to, and I will praise them to the moon if they're doing stuff good. This was not a good episode. This was pretty bad. This was really bad. Scorpio Sky match, with the Jericho, nobody was interested. These buffoons jumping Cody Rhodes was, you know, whatever. And then the Best Friends beating the Lucha Brothers was just absolutely absurd. Which, you know, I was not buying into that. I was not buying into that. And it's not going to hurt the Lucha Brothers, like I said, because nobody's going to buy it. No, everybody's just knowing, all right, you're trying to put these guys over. You guys don't have to put everyone over on this show. All right. The Young Bucks should not be losing to Private Party. It's another match I never agreed with. You have your obvious stars. Run with them. Run with them. Let these guys be the ones holding the titles and, you know, showcasing your brand. And then you build up other wrestlers and what would seem like an impossible victory. You know, if, let's say, for example, you take the Best Friends and you want to build them up to be your next champion, and they got to get over that, they got to try and beat the Young Bucks. That gives you something to build towards. And then that's how you build them. You slowly build them. Because let me tell you something. Most people organically root for the underdog. And all it takes is a good gimmick, the good wrestling, which is to be expected, and a pattern, a streak. You know, I personally believe Jericho being the champion was the best thing they did. I think putting Cody Rhodes towards that championship was good until they put that stipulation in, which now it appears that they're trying to convince people that is dead, that set in stone. I don't buy it, but if you are to buy it, that means he can never compete again for a belt, which is just dumb. He's the biggest baby face on the show right now. You know, you've taken Kenny Omega, you know, losing to Moxley, I get that. That's Dean Ambrose from WWE's big name. That's fine. But he had been losing to others that I'm not convinced yet. You know, I like Pac. Now, Pac has been the one to benefit from beating people like Adam Page and Kenny Omega. But in my personal opinion, I think the AEW should have hit the ground running, putting the belt on their best talent, whether tag team championships on the Young Bucks or the Lucha Brothers, either or, and then putting the championship on Jericho is a good move. And I'm sure there's going to be some other belts coming along the way and tournaments for that. But overall, the show was weak. It was their weakest show to date. Finally, we're going to end with WWE Smackdown. Now, I was disappointed with this episode because the whole time, this whole week, there's been this promo with The Fiend was going to introduce someone new, a new face. And to make a long story short, there was none. I'm assuming his new face was either the Fiend's version of the Universal title, which looks absolutely stupid. I hope they do not make him wear that. And then the other thing was when he was doing 2 more segments, I said to myself, okay, well, it's not the belt, it's got to be something else. And basically, I guess the new face is Daniel Bryan, Because at the end of the show, he attacks Daniel Bryan, drags him underneath the ring, and then he starts popping up every couple of seconds, pulling what appears to be Daniel's hair out. So whatever that means, I guess we won't find out till this Friday. Now, the show in and of itself was all right. You know, we got a little promo with Sheamus coming back, and that should be fun. Really weird opening because we had Roman Reigns come out and he cut a promo. Then next you know, he's getting jumped. And I said to myself, you know, you got Baron Corbin here jumping, you know, Roman Reigns with with Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler. And you would think Gable and Mustafa would come out and help their Survivor Series teammate, but they didn't. And this is weird to me. It's like, you know, just a couple of days ago, these guys are cheering together, they're working together, blah, blah, blah. And now here are three guys beating the crap out of what's supposed to be your locker room leader, and nobody comes out to help at all. Especially the two people that he kind of stuck his neck out for to get on the team. Because obviously Baron Corbin wanted Ziggler and Roode. So to me, that was just weird. Nikki Cross, I'm enjoying seeing her a lot on TV. So her win over Sonya Deville, that was pretty cool. Although I think Sonya should be getting her time too. Elias returns. At the moment, I don't care. If he's just going to come back and start doing the same thing, like, I'm over it. It was fun for a while, but you know, look, Elias is a big guy, and he looks like he can move in the ring. I want to see him wrestle. I don't want to see them waste this guy sitting on a chair playing the guitar. It's just, I mean, come on. So let's see what happens with Elias. I'll be excited if I start seeing him wrestle more than sing. And then, of course, you had the New Day maintaining their title. It was an okay episode, but I was really disappointed at the end. You know, on one hand, look, I love when The Fiend pops out, and I really do love this kind of rival he's got going with Daniel Bryan. I think this is a good fit. But it was a very underwhelming ending when you're making it seem like he's going to have like another part of his crew, and he doesn't. There's no way. It was just him appearing to cut off Daniel Bryan's hair. So the ending was a little underwhelming for me because, you know, if you're going to say, you know, a new face, or I'm going to reveal a new face, or something along those lines, maybe just don't say anything. You know, just do what you do. There was so many people speculating online that it was going to be Liv Morgan returning as a new character that was under his wing. And I was kind of sold on that. In fact, they probably should have done that. So, you know. But that otherwise, overall, from War Games all the way up to Friday Night Smackdown, I thought it was a great week in wrestling. It was a lot of fun. You know, WWE had a great week. You know, AEW, I mean, again, the show had good moments, don't get me wrong. But there were more bad moments in AEW on their show than there were good moments. And we'll see where it goes. You know, tonight is Monday Night Raw. Last night was Starrcade. Like I said, I didn't watch it. I did hear about the results. It just didn't appeal to me. You know, it's a glorified house show. I wasn't going to waste my time watching that, you know, because a lot of it's not canon to what they're doing on the TV show. So I was like, I'm not going to watch it. But I wanted to do this and kind of wrap up what was, I believe, a good week of wrestling overall before I started on the more focused Raw, AEW, NXT, Smackdown reviews that I'm going to be doing on this podcast. I used to try and do them on the channel, but it was a little bit too much because when you do a video, giving pictures and stuff like that, makes it take longer. Podcasts, I can handle it easier because I'm discussing it. And I don't know, I just feel much better about doing it on a podcast section than I do about doing it on video. So Tuesday, at some point, you can expect a review for Monday Night Raw. We'll do that. And then, of course, Thursday will be AEW and SmackDown reviews that will be up separately. All these videos will be separate from each other, so they'll be much shorter than this introductory one, but I wanted to use this one as a way to kind of get the wrestling portion of the podcast, Entertainment Talk Nation podcast, started, to kind of hit the ground running, and then from there do the reviews. And look, I'm hoping that WWE continues this recent little surge. I did overall like the NXT angle with the invasion. I know why they did it. I know that it's not something that's going to be everlasting, but I had fun. I had fun watching it. It was a lot of fun. There are a lot of NXT wrestlers that deserve a moment. They got it. I would say the one who benefited from the most from this invasion was probably Keith Lee. Keith Lee came off like a shoe. And Roman Reigns made him look like a superstar. Seth Rollins, hate him or love him, put him over, made him look like a superstar. The NXT wrestlers during War Games made him look like a superstar. The fans can't help but chant his name constantly and chant, "Oh, bask in his glory." I just love that. It's great. So I would say he was probably the biggest benefactor. And you want to know something? I really do think it's time they bring up the Undisputed Era. You know, I do think one of the things lacking in WWE right now is a very dominating faction. And I say what you want about the OC. The OC are just, it's pretty much AJ Styles and those two guys. Unfortunately, they really haven't pushed the Good Brothers, you know, Gallows and Anderson, along with AJ. You know, it'd be nice if AJ had a belt and then they had the tag team championship belts for longer than what they did. But, you know, I would love to see the Undisputed Era in WWE main roster, because that would definitely shake things up. I understand why they're not going to do that, or at least not anytime soon. But I kind of feel like if they brought them up and put them in a position to dominate, that would make things so much better. But be that as it may now, as it stands, now competing with AEW, probably not going to happen. Anyway, everyone, that is it for this podcast. I told you, if I had went through each and every match on each and every show, this would have been a very long video. As it stands, we're at almost 48 minutes. I like to try and keep my episodes at least to a half hour, but I do realize sometimes it'll go over. My goal is at least to overall keep it under an hour, or no more than an hour, I should say. So thank you for listening to all this. Listen, if you have anything you want to say about anything wrestling related, remember, as I've said in my other episodes, you can call into the show. You can call in, you can leave a message, and you can either ask a question, make a comment, or say whatever it is you want to say about WWE or anything entertainment related. As long as it's relevant to the podcast episode, that's all that I ask. And if we continue to have shy people, because I know there's some shy people out there, we are going to have a mailbag. Maybe some of you would rather prefer writing email, so that's perfectly fine. We'll set that up by the end of the week, so you guys can start sending email messages and questions and comments, and then that would be great, and we can interact. But definitely look for the Raw review tomorrow morning, and I'm hoping I have a guest that's going to be here that's going to review it with me. I'm hoping that we can get things set up tonight, so that when we record together tomorrow. But if he's not here, he'll definitely be here later this week. And until tomorrow, I want to thank you all for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Entertainment Talk Nation, or you can follow me here on etn.podbean.com. We are up on Spotify now, so you can catch us there. And I will let everyone know as soon as we are up and available on iTunes. I would have to think it'd have to be sometime in the next day or two. But anyway, thank you for listening. This is Rob signing off for ETN, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Take it easy.
Thank you for listening to Entertainment Talk Nation. Don't forget to rate and follow and visit us on YouTube at ETN, where you can subscribe to the channel for daily content.